welcome back to episode 5 of Dear Future Earth, the podcast. Today with us, we have Dr. Oishimaya Sen Nag, who is the senior editor for World Atlas Canada and is also a wildlife conservation storyteller. She currently has a PhD in biochemistry and is from Kolkata, India. Welcome.
Thank you, Ruhi. It's a pleasure to be on this podcast.
So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So basically, I grew up in Kolkata, India, and when I grew up, I used to love animals since childhood, but I was never that way exposed to wildlife because no one in my friends, family nearby were associated with the field of wildlife conservation or something like that. But as I grew up, the environmental issues also started cropping up in India, and then it started coming up on news and then social media gradually, and that's how I came to know about what is happening around me to the environment, to wildlife and all. So gradually my interest grew in the field, but still I did not have an idea of how to have a career in the field at that time because I did not have anybody to mentor me or anybody to tell me how to do it. So I went with a traditional, the way of studying because I used to love biology. I started studying and I did my PhD in Parkinson's disease basically. But while I was doing all that, I used to write articles to the local newspapers, to the editorials and all about the environmental issues I used to see around in my city, and also write for some school and college magazines and all on wildlife, animals and all. After completing my PhD, I got a chance to go to Canada, and over there I started working for World Atlas, where I got an opportunity to actually totally shift my career to the field of writing and editing. And then I started working for World Atlas, and we had an environmental section there where I started interviewing conservation leaders from across the globe, and that's how I came to know about what is really happening around the world in the field of wildlife, how wildlife is disappearing, and how the environmental issues that were getting magnified with every passing year. So then I started working. Then I came back to India, and in India I understood that because I've grown up in India, I knew that I could write better about the issues that are actually plaguing my country. And then I started traveling, across India, across the length and breadth of India, interacting with the communities, with the conservation practitioners, and with the scientists working in the field. And then that's how I came to learn more, and I started writing more. And now I work with numerous publications and I write stories for them. Yes.
That's absolutely amazing. And it sounds like you've been on quite a journey.
Yes, it's been quite a journey. There's been ups and downs, a lot of that. But yes, it's been very interesting. But I love what I do now. So I have no regrets for anything.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, and what you do is very, very noble. And I think it's also amazing that you focus on specifically India. India, we know, has very versatile nature. We have the Himalayas. We have beautiful, lush forests. And so you were in India, but why did you decide to come to Canada?
Canada, that was one was because my husband was there. He was working there. I was visiting him after finishing my PhD, and also I thought about applying for postdoctoral studies there. Actually, I got an opportunity for a postdoctoral study in the US, but at the same time I got this job, and so it was a difficult decision for me to understand, to what I really want in my life. And somehow I knew what my heart was saying, that what I should do, and then I chose this field of writing and editing.
That's absolutely amazing. So what kind of articles did you write and edit in World Atlas?
So initially I was writing articles where I was interviewing about the work done by the leading conservationists, like about snow leopards, how they are being conserved in Nepal, then in India, tiger conservation. Then there were many different smaller, lesser known species across the world. In Indonesia, there's a rare parrot. There is a crocodile in the Philippines that's critically endangered. So I was initially working with the larger predators, the big cats, writing on articles on them. Mm-hmm. But later I shifted my focus towards lesser known species because those species need more attention as well. And then I started writing about them. Yeah, so that was my main focus. Later on became lesser known species, writing about such species.
Awesome. And so I'm sure you must have done like a lot of research on these species.
Yes. But after that, afterward, at last, when I came to know about what is happening, the global situation, I understood that I needed to write more in-depth articles, more like where I can experience things on my own. And so I started visiting places in India and actually seeing what is happening on the spot, and then going to the experts and learning more from them and writing even more like in-depth articles about, especially about the local communities. Now also I started writing about them. I was writing about the lesser known species, and now also about the local communities in India who are doing incredible work. For generations they have been doing to conserve wildlife, but very little recognition is given to them, I feel.
Could you give some examples of what they do?
Yeah, sure. So if you visit northwestern India, especially Rajasthan, so there I went. There was a village near Jodhpur, a town, and there is it's called the Chandela village, and there you have a community living called the Bishnoi people. They live in northwestern parts of India in around 5 states over there, but primarily Rajasthan is where most of them are found. So I went to this Bishnoi village. And who are the Bishnois? Bishnois, they were born, the Bishnoism, it's a kind of a subsect of Hinduism that was born around 500 years back. There was a saint called Guru Jambeshwar. So what he taught is 29 principles. People who would follow them, they will be called Bishnois. So here Bish means Bis basically 20 and Noi means 9. So anybody who follows those 29 principles are Bishnois. And some of the very important principles among them were never to cut green trees. So trees that are green, and never to hurt any animal. Always be compassionate to all living creatures living around you, and protect them and keep them safe. And the Bishnois really actually believe in this, and they actually practice this. So if you go to Bishnoi village, you might see Bishnoi women. They have picked up an orphan. So their villages are usually in arid areas, and there you have a lot of black bucks, chinkaras, those antelopes and deer, spotted deer, and also those kind of animals are found there. So what happens if they find an orphaned deer or antelope? They will bring it to their home, and they will feed them their own breast milk if they have their own lactate baby that stage. So they will feed them. So that's how Bishnoi women are. They're like mothers to the wildlife as well. And the Bishnoi men, what they do is they don't get any monetary or something like that reward for this, but they are just doing it because their culture tells them to do so. So the Bishnoi men, they would just patrol the land around the villages, and if there is any hunting or any poacher there, they will not leave them. They will just go to any extent to ensure that the animals are protected, that they don't care about their own lives as well. So in 1996, there's a person called Nihal Chand Bishnoi. What happened was there was some deer poaching going on near his village. So he and all the villagers, they heard about this and they rushed to the spot, and they tried to fight off the poachers. The poachers gunshot hit Nihal, and he died. And the poachers were not able to take the bodies of the deer with them, so they left. They ran away. But Nihal Chand Bishnoi, very few people know, and even today, if you search online, his picture is not there, but he made this extreme sacrifice, and he was awarded the Shaurya Chakra. He was the first Indian civilian to be given a military award posthumously for bravery.
Wow.
So this is how Bishnois are, and today also they are ready to give their lives for wildlife. And there's another very important story. If you have time, I'll just tell about the Bishnois.
Of course.
Yeah? Okay. This goes back to the 18th century. So in 1730, what happened was there was a Bishnoi village where local king's men had come to cut down trees because the king wanted to build a fort. They wanted wood for that. And so the men started cutting the trees early in the morning. And this Amrita Devi Bishnoi, she's a Bishnoi lady. She was living in that village. And she rushed out when she heard the trees being cut. And she told the men not to cut the trees. But the men did not listen to her. Her daughters also came, and they also said, started speaking with their mother. But the men did not listen. And then what they did, the women, they hugged the trees, and they said that we will not let you cut the trees. But the men actually chopped them off along with the trees. And that day, 363 villagers, it's called the Khejarli sacrifice, they all were killed just because they hugged the trees and prevented the trees from being chopped off. And that goes down in the Bishnoi history as a tragic incident, but again, an incident that, inspires them even today. It's called the Khejarli sacrifice, led by Amrita Devi Bishnoi. And today you have a memorial there with all these 363 trees planted there in memory of this incident. So it said that when the king heard about this, he was actually very moved and he cried. And he said that no Bishnoi village should ever be touched again to cut trees. And so today's Bishnois also believe, they have a line that's Sir Saathe Rukh Rahe To Bhi Sasto Jaan. Means even if you have to get beheaded to save a tree, your head is cheaper than your life is cheaper than that of the tree. So this is incredible, this community that lives there. And so that's how they're saving animals for generations, and since 500 years they've been doing so. And even today they are doing like recently I came across a video, there was some deer were hunted nearby in the village, and they came out and they blocked the road. They took the deer bodies, like human bodies, are taken in a glass box. They put it in the middle of the road, and all the women and the men sat crying. They said it's like an aged lady, Bishnoi lady. She was saying it's like my grandsons and granddaughters have died, and we are protesting that. So that's the compassion. That's the way. So if a Bishnoi village is there, you don't have to worry about conserving wildlife there. They will be protected just like that because of the people that are existing there.
Oh
so
my.
that's a beautiful thing. Yes.
Talk about being connected with nature. That's like next level.
And next level. They have next level. Yeah, connection. Yes.
I fully agree with you on how important animals' lives and plant life is. And I don't think people would know about this if it weren't for people like you that try and spread the information out to the rest of the world. And
yes,
honestly, the lessons are really valuable. That in the end, I mean, we're all connected, right? So it makes sense that we would want to save animals, that we would want to save trees. I honestly think the whole world could learn from this. I think it's beautiful. True. It's very noble, very brave, not selfish, very selfless.
It's totally a selfless way. They are just doing it, just because they think it's their duty to do it. It's part of the life, just like that. Yeah.
There are so many takeaways that you can take just from their stories. One is that definitely be more connected to nature. Give more to nature and nature will give more back to you.
Yes, they totally believe in that. Bishnois and many other communities are there like them. I mean, not like they are the best example, I would say, but there are many other communities who actually are very interesting the ways they live with nature in India.
That's absolutely amazing. Yeah. And so you've been researching all of these communities. You've been trying to explore a little bit more about them, and you would say that this community was the best one that you came across.
Yes, I think the way the Bishnois are ready to do or die for the environment, that's really, unimaginable, the amount of dedication they have. So, yeah. But there are other communities also who are actually, Bishnois, they don't live with predators. There are other communities that are actually living with predators, and they're like in the Sundarbans of India. So you have, I went to the Sundarbans. If you visit, it's a unimaginable place. It's like where your primitive fears come alive.
Can I ask where that is?
Yes, because if you go as a tourist, of course, you're very sheltered in the way you go, and you're provided vessels, and it's quite very safe. But if you're actually living in the Sundarbans as a villager, and for generations, what they have been doing is they usually say that Jungle Korchi means we go to the forest, and for them going to the forest is to collect honey or to collect crabs. Sundarbans crabs are very supposed to be very tasty, and there's a huge market for them, which is not good and shouldn't be there. But that market is there, often exported. So for the crabs, for the honey, the people, they go to the forest. So Sundarbans is basically, it's located at the mouth of the Ganga Delta in West Bengal and Bangladesh together, and it opens where it opens into the Bay of Bengal. So it's many islands together, small island, different sizes. So some islands are now inhabited by villages, and some islands are part of the protected area, Sundarbans National Park, and there the tigers reside. The Sundarbans tigers, and it's the world's largest mangrove area, and the Sundarbans tigers are known to prey on humans. They do that.
Really?
Tigers elsewhere might, very occasionally, due to some reason or the other, they might attack. But in Sundarbans, it is actually tigers who actually prey, eat humans, when they get them. So yeah, it's a crazy ecosystem. It's there are many reasons explaining, why tigers do that in the Sundarbans. There's one reason is that because Sundarbans is so inaccessible, the tigers were usually not hunted there. Like in the other parts of India, there's a history of hunting, especially colonial era hunting. But Sundarbans tigers were not hunted because of the terrain was so difficult. You have the pneumatophore sticking out, like needles, and huge and slushy mud everywhere, like along the coasts and along the islands, slush, mud, and very difficult to move around in that terrain. So tigers' prey numbers are also less there because of this terrain, and the prey diversity is less. And the forests are very impenetrable wherever you have the thick mangroves and tigers living. So all these reasons, and they even say because the tiger drinks salt water, that's why they are more aggressive. But that is not proven by science as such. But many reasons, many theories have been suggested as to why the tigers do that there. But they do that. And so what happens, like these villages, if you go to interact with villages there in Sundarbans, you'll find homes around, somewhere where a tiger has attacked and killed a person, or in recent time, maybe 2-3 months back, you hear that, or snake bites are very common there, or there are crocodiles that actually kill people there, because Sundarban, there's a saying that Dangai Bag Jole Kumir means Dangai means on the land you have the tiger, in the water you have the crocodile. So
basically most of the animals over there, they kill humans.
Yeah, kind of. So but still there is, people have existed there, because Sundarbans people believe that the tiger is something, an entity that's above them. It's like it's like a godly creature. And then there is a Bono Bibi, they protect, that's the forest goddess. So they pray to the forest goddess, and they have in the shrines that they have there, they have the tiger there, the Bono Bibi, the forest goddess there, and the Bono Bibi again has a pet crocodile, So they worship the entire system. So they believe that, they are at the mercy of tigers, and they say that goddess of the forest protect us. So there's a belief, there is a reverence for tigers, even though tigers are preying on them. So there's a reverence for them that prevents the humans from going out and just killing the tigers off. So that way, that's a kind of coexistence model that exists there. Very interesting that how culture also here also, the culture of the people helps them to live with predators, even though predators are oftentimes preying on them. So that's a very interesting way again here also, that people are living with wildlife, with predators, and the culture is helping them to do so.
That made me think, and like your story made me think about something that we often, I feel like we don't question culture a lot, because normally in culture it would be like, oh, you kind of want to rise to, or kind of going beyond simple cultural practices, like, I don't know, festivals or dancing.
Yes.
I'd say overall in culture, it's like many cultures also, they have some spiritual aspects where it's like you want to rise to the highest possible point. But then, But then some cultures also have a few controversies. But I think it's really cool that cultures, at least in that part of India, they let animals sort of kill them. If the situation were to happen, then they would be at mercy to the animal, which is quite contrary to many other cultures.
Yes. I mean, they won't go out downright and kill the animals. I mean, that usually happens in other places. But there are situations, there are conflict situations where people are killing the animals. But overall, if this was happening, to tell the truth, actually, India is, if you see it, has around 17% of the global population.
Yeah.
So I think right now, India is becoming the largest, most populated country, or it has become, it's at that stage.
Yes, it is.
And so, I mean, despite this, over 1.4 billion people living in the country, we still have the world's highest wild tiger population, the world's highest Asiatic elephant population, highest Asiatic lion population, highest one-horned rhino population. So all these animals were, before they were widespread across Asia, large parts of Asia, and even beyond. But today, their population is primarily confined to India. So, how has this been possible? It can't be just because of the laws or just because of the conservationists and forest people who are working very well and working very hard and very dedicatedly, and but also because of people in general. If this many people did not accept the presence of wildlife in their midst, we couldn't have conserved wildlife that way. So I think it's because of the culture that we still have this much wildlife in the country, despite such a high human population as well, and so many problems associated with it.
And that's amazing. And I'm sure that hopefully even more of these species they'll continue to populate. It'll be really cool. But why do you think this came to be? Like, even as you were saying it, I was like, why is the culture like that? Like, why? It's so different.
Because this is basically one of the most ancient civilizations. India falls in that area, right? And when the culture that developed over millennia, and it was taught like Vasudeva Kutumbakam, means the entire world is one family. It was taught that every animal is like humans are not above animals. The culture taught people that humans are part of the system. It's like exchanges keep happening, so we are all together one part of the system. We are not above any animals or something like that. So because of this teaching, since ancient times it has been there. And because if you see, even our gods and goddesses, they come with animals here, and they're riding on elephants, or they themselves are animals. We have the Narsim, we have Hiranyakashipu. I mean, different gods and goddesses, like the stories if you go through. So they have they're associated with animals, and and often given positive symbolisms in the culture. And because of which I think people relate to animals. They don't kill animals downright. They feel like it might be something wrong when they're killing an animal. So I think because of all this, it's been ancient in the ancient times. Since the ancient times, the kind of belief system has grown, and that is intrinsically there in people in India, and that helps them to tolerate or accept the presence of wildlife in and around them, and not kill or go into a hunting spree, which happened during the colonial times. That time was the most terrifying time, I think, for Indian wildlife as well, because there were bounties set on tigers and other predators, and animals were hunted down crazily during the time. And even people from the country also, they participated with the colonial power to kill the animals at that time. So that was one of the, I think, the darkest periods of, I think, wildlife history, the colonial period in India. And after that, definitely again the laws came in, and the laws helped to protect the wildlife in India, because at that time it was like the exclusionary model, where you have the protected areas where you take out every person from there, and then you protect the wildlife in the protected areas. The national parks were created, the Project Tiger reserves were created, and wildlife was protected because of the laws at the time. Hunting was totally banned after when India became free. In 1972, hunting was totally banned because of the Wildlife Protection Act. So all that was done, but now again we need people's participation, because protected areas are only around 5% of India, and you cannot protect wildlife in just that much, and then you say the other area belongs to humans. You have to have wildlife ecosystems, healthy, thriving ecosystems everywhere. And now you again need people's participation. You need the local communities to participate. So it's a very vital time now for India to involve the people again, in conservation. So that's what is happening now in the buffer areas, in the corridor areas. We need to protect the wildlife.
For sure.
Yeah.
I do think that, I know that, or I think, what was it, around 37% of India is vegetarian. There's definitely some ground rules when it comes to animal abuse or animal preservation, where it comes.
Yes.
And with those rules, maybe we could start in India, where it's like there should be a lot more news about the types of communities that you mentioned, and more news about how we can actually preserve these animals by kind of embedding the culture a little bit into our local communities.
Yes, and embedding the these cultural things into the traditional cultural things, into the modern conservation practices. Modern conservation practices based on science primarily, and the technical things, which is amazing, which is of course very much needed. But at the same time, if we involve the cultural things from the people, and we can reach out to more people. I think, I guess conservation should be done by the masses, right? Till then, it's not going to be effective ever. till the masses accept the fact that we need to conserve. We just can't limit to a few people, to a community who is trying to conserve wildlife and the others are not interested in that. We need everybody to participate in conservation. For that, we need to reach out to everybody, and we can do so with the help of inculcating, taking in their culture, in the local culture, local tradition into the conservation practices, the strategies and all. So I think that is important.
They say culture is really strong. And humans are social creatures. Culture was created from social norms. So naturally, definitely culture, it's like, obviously that would be the solution. But why would it be more effective than like modern conservation? Actually, wait, what is modern conservation?
Modern conservation, I think, in the context of India, I would say conservation was like what happened after independence in India, after actually the 1972 Wildlife Protection Act and the 1973 Project Tiger was launched. In India, tiger reserves were created and national parks and all. And what was done is that those places were totally, human communities, villages, and everything was totally excluded from there. They were relocated. People were en masse relocated from the forests, and the forests were made inviolate spaces for wildlife. Only wildlife will live there. No human disturbance or interference will be there, and that will be managed by the forest departments. So that was a kind of model that was followed, and so wildlife, and that was very important at that time because wildlife had decreased so much. Tigers numbers came down to 1411 in the 2000s. So yes, in India, because after the colonial hunting period and after that also the hunting still continued till 1972. Wildlife numbers like totally went down in India, and
that might as well just be extinction.
Yeah, you can say yes, it was on the verge of extinction, many animals in India. And so at that time, it was very important, this kind of an exclusionary model where you just remove the human communities, create undisturbed spaces for wildlife to breed, in peace, and to then gradually proliferate and start spreading out. And that actually worked, and the tiger numbers gradually recovered in the tiger reserves of India. And tiger, I'm not talking just about, tiger is basically a metaphor because tiger is an umbrella species. So when you're protecting the tiger, you're protecting many species living with it, the entire habitat, because tiger has a long range, it just moves around a lot, it's a big territory. So you're protecting a lot of species under the tiger's umbrella. So that's what happened after 1972. That was the model that was used. But now what is the thing is that now you cannot keep on increasing these kind of undisturbed areas, because where will the people go there now? And India with such a huge population, so you have to now protect wildlife that is actually coming out. Numbers are growing, they are coming out of this, spilling out of these protected areas, and also there's existing wildlife in the non-protecting areas, and we call them corridor areas. Wildlife needs to move from one protected area to another protected area, so the gene flow is there. So all this, so now what we need is a community-based conservation model where the people will start, people will participate in the conservation. And so that is the new thing, like not new thing, but it has been there. Culturally it has been there, but now in modern conservation practices also talking about community-based conservation, because the protected area is limited, especially in countries like India. You cannot increase the space and keep on increasing and removing people from everywhere, but you need to include people and wildlife at the same place now. So that's how the conservation is going to work now.
I get it. And now because of globalization, we can reach the other 6.6 billion people that are not in India. We can reach all of those people, and then and then suddenly community is not just one small community. Community has so many more layers. It can be local community, country community, like continental community.
Yes, true, absolutely. And so that's how conservation is going to work now, and we need to see how we have to find out ways now how to work with people. And along with that, there are a lot of other issues also that's happening, like people's aspirations are growing, and everybody wants to live a developed life, as you say, because people look up the rural people, the forest people, they look up to the urban people for the lifestyle, the standard of living and all. So these people, they need to be also shown that your life is also so good, like you people are motivating us, like instead of us motivating you. So those kind of things, I think is very important. And then there is a lot of infrastructure projects coming up in India, roads, railways built, multiplying day by day, and those are also creating a lot of wildlife deaths due to road accidents, collisions, and many other ways. So India is developing fast, and at the same time, the population is increasing, population pressures are increasing. So it's a very vital time for India to see how we proceed, with conservation in the future. And I think it's happening in different parts of the world also. It will happen in the developing areas, countries of the world. And so, so that's how it is right now in India.
But I think that in India, everyone is like extremely smart. It's India. We're like, Israel,
Yeah.
we were the first ones to land on the bottom side, on the dark side of the moon. So
Yeah, absolutely true.
So I'm sure that at least starting from India, we'll be able to like find a balance between urban and rural areas, and hopefully we'll be able to do a lot more conservation that way, because balance is really key. Halting development may be effective, but in the end, I feel like it's also like what you said, it's up to the people how they decide to act more than just like government officials.
Yes, absolutely. It just totally depends on people. Ultimately, people have power. I believe in that. So it'll be the people who will be deciding, and that's why it's very important to involve them in the conservation work. And the more and more they get involved, they'll be able to decide what they want to do.
All right. I'm so glad that we were able to have this discussion, that we were able to talk about how different communities, if they come together, they can make a lot of difference. And honestly, you're like, the knowledge that you gave us, me and the viewers, about how different communities in India in particular have preserved wildlife, have preserved animals, is absolutely beautiful. And I'm sure that we can learn from that.
I gave 2 examples. There are many more in India, like in Northeast India and Arunachal Pradesh. They believe there's the Idumishmi people. They believe the tiger is a brother, and killing of the tiger is, it's a strict no-no for them. Then there is in Mumbai, Maharashtra. In Mumbai, you have actually a forest community living there called the Varli tribals. They pray the leopard as a leopard god called Vaghoba, So they don't kill leopards, and they live with leopards, and they say that, when they hear a leopard roar, and actually Mumbai has 48 leopards, the Mumbai city. It's 48 white leopards. Yes. It has the Sanjay Gandhi National Park, and around that it has an RM milk colony, which is a forested area. And there these tribals live. They are the indigenous communities of the area, the Varli people, the Varli tribals, and they worship the Vaghoba. Vaghoba is a leopard god, and they pray, like when they hear a leopard roar in their midst, they will say that they will break a coconut shell, which is supposed to be auspicious, and they will say that, "Oh Lord Vaghoba, protect the forest, protect us, protect our livestock." And when they don't hear a leopard roar around them, they get worried. They say that what has happened to the leopard? Has somebody killed them? It's like family to us, we feel afraid. We go out and try to find out what has happened. So that's the kind of, again, relationship they have, beautiful. I mean, throughout India, you have such examples, very interesting, and but very little studied. I think very little research has been done on these, cultural, culture, how culture influences conservation. So that I think more research needs to be done on that as well.
For sure. No, and there are figures like you. There are many figures like you that are also trying to do this kind of work. Even a few people on my podcast also had similar goals. And I find that absolutely beautiful. So cheers to positive environmental change,
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely lovely having you today on our podcast, Dear Future Earth. I gained a lot of knowledge. I'm sure our viewers also did. A lot of knowledge about India. As an Indian, I'm a little embarrassed to say that I did not know that much.
No, it's absolutely fine, Ruhi. I'm just happy that you liked listening to the stories that I told you. There are lots more in store, and we would love to discuss again, some other time. And you're always welcome to India, and everybody who's listening who is not from India, has not visited, or who is in India and has not visited these, local communities, must do so and meet with them. They are very warm and loving people, and they are ready to welcome you like their own family, to come and visit these people.
That's so sweet. What do you think are some other ways that people could know about this? Because sure, there's this podcast episode, but what are some other ways that people could learn about these communities?
I mean, I think you have to know about the heart and soul of India to know about these communities, because, I mean, there are articles on them, but not all these communities not together in one place you will find. I think that's lacking. We need more information to be there about this. There are articles on Bishnois, there are articles on the Wali people, you can find them out, but I can't give you one single source from where to find about these communities, you know. It's like not one single source where you can just go and find out all this. This is like, you know, research, you know, done by different people, and they are coming up with different information, and then you have to research, you know, where to go, what to find. So I can't actually provide a one single source from where to learn about them. Yeah, you have to read, and online, you have to read social media, go through social media, and also, yeah, that's how to find gradually, you know, bits and pieces you pick up and learn about these communities.
What about social media, though? I think social media could be a great way to spread a lot of information about these communities globally.
I think it's needed now more and more, because right now also, again, conservation that is happening in India is primarily by the forest department and the NGOs who are doing fantastic work. But these local communities who are also conserving wildlife in their own ways, you know, their stories need to be told more and more. I think that the younger generation should come up with, you know, ideas how to do that, how to tell their stories more, write about them. I would say the younger generation should start doing that also. They would love doing that, I would say.
And I mean, we love social media, and I'm sure there are millions of other communities like this in their local areas. So,
yes, true.
So how about this? Maybe all of the viewers that decide to participate in our challenge can make a post talking about one interesting local community that they have in their area that focuses on environmental preservation or wildlife conservation.
Yes, I think that would be great. That would be a great idea, you know. Wherever you're living, in whichever part of the world, you know, if you know of such people who are doing great work, and, you know, a group of people, and their interesting cultural practices also, maybe that is associated with wildlife conservation, environment, do write about them, share about them in social media, you know, and that would be great. Yes, we need to know about these people, you know.
I personally live in Mississauga, Canada, which used to be an Indigenous area. So I will definitely do some exploration, see what kind of communities for positive environmental change still lie here. And I'll definitely spread it, because that's important.
I would love to know about the stories from there too. Yes, definitely. Looking forward to it.
Yes, thank you so much for participating in this challenge with me and hosting it.
Yeah, thank you. Same here.
Dear Future Earth is now streaming on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify.